And Kari Lake will be back with us again in about a half an hour. You can follow her at karilake.com, Kari. Mark Eiglarsh is going to open the show with a little, hopefully, swing by from Emily Knows Everything, who is there at the court for the Diddy case. Mark, a defense attorney and an old friend and one of the best commentators, legal commentators in media, has some thoughts about what's likely going to come in from that jury. You can follow Mark at Mark Eiglarsh, Eiglarsh on Facebook and Instagram, and also eiglarslaw.com. And then finally, John Carney at Carney, Carney on X, and Breitbart News on X. We're going to talk a little bit about, amongst other things, the Zohran Mamdani candidacy, and as a New Yorker himself, what he thinks about that. A lot to get into. Stay with us. Be right with you after this.
Our laws, as it pertains to substances, are draconian and bizarre. The psychopaths start this way. He was an alcoholic because of social media and pornography, PTSD, love addiction, fentanyl and heroin. Ridiculous. I'm a doctor, for Christ's sake. Where the hell do you think I learned that? I'm just saying, you go to treatment before you kill people. I am a clinician. I observe things about these chemicals. Let's just deal with what's real. We used to get these calls on Loveline all the time. Educate adolescents and to prevent and to treat. If you have trouble you can't stop and you want help stop it, I can help. I got a lot to say. I got a lot more to say.
I'm excited to bring you a new product, a new supplement, Fatty. I take it. I make Susan take it. My whole family takes it. This comes out of, believe it or not, dolphin research. The Navy maintains a fleet of dolphins, and a brilliant veterinarian recognized that these dolphins sometimes developed a syndrome identical to our Alzheimer's disease. Those dolphins were deficient in a particular fatty acid. She replaced the fatty acid, and they didn't get the Alzheimer's. Humans have the same issue, and we are more deficient in this particular fatty acid than ever before. And a simple replacement of this fatty acid called C15 will help us prevent these syndromes. It's published in a recent journal called Metabolites. It's a new nutritional C15, pentadecanoic acid it's called. The deficiency that we are developing for C15 creates something called the cellular fragility syndrome. This is the first nutritional deficiency syndrome to be discovered in 75 years and may be affecting us in many ways, and as many as 1 in 3 of us. This is an important breakthrough. Take advantage of it. Go to fatty15.com/Dr. Drew to receive 15% off a 90-day starter kit subscription, or use code Dr. Drew at checkout for that 15% off, or just go to our website, drdrew.com/fatty15. As I said, stay with us. John Carney coming in about 45 minutes or so to talk about Zohran Mamdani. I struggle with his name. I'm sorry. And what is likely to happen to New York City should he become the mayoral candidate. Kari Lake, who is the, I'll get her exact title properly for you guys. She oversees Voice of America, and the official title is Special Advisor to United States Agency for Global Media. And right now, it's Mark Eiglarsh, defense attorney. As I told you, you can go to eiglarslaw.com and follow Mark on Facebook or Instagram at Mark Eiglarsh, Eiglarsh. Hey, my friend, how are you?
I'm choosing to be wonderful. Thank you. And by the way, speaktomark.com is the easiest way to get there. People can spell that, not my crazy last name.
Beg your pardon. I see that too. Speaktomark.com. You make me nervous when you say you're choosing to be. It's so good to see you. First of all, I've not been sort of eyeball to eyeball with you in a long time. And when you say you're choosing to be well, it makes me nervous that in spite of being here with me, you're choosing to be happy.
It's a thrill. Thank you for having me.
My gosh. So, Mark, you said you had some thoughts about what's likely to come in from the jurors at the Diddy case.
Well, here's what we know. This is breaking news. Like right here on your show, we just learned that jurors have said that they've reached unanimous verdicts as it relates to counts 2, 3, 4, and 5. They're hung up on count 1, which is the racketeering count. Okay, so what does that mean? It means that at least one juror, if not more, believe that the government did prove the racketeering case, and others feel differently. So they're hung on that. What does that mean for counts 2, 3, 4, 5? Again, we're speculating, but you mean the ones who think that he's guilty of racketeering are cutting him loose on the lesser charges, 2, 3, 4, 5? I don't think so. So maybe that's 2, 3, 4, 5 guilty, and then they remain hung on 1. No one really knows, but that would be my guess based upon what we see.
And isn't the racketeering the big charge, right? That's the one that has the most time associated with it. What are the other ones that they're considering?
2 counts of sex trafficking, and then 2 additional counts of paying for a prostitute to come across straight state lines and do what prostitutes do.
And did they? I was sort of surprised they didn't include domestic violence in anything. Does that seem weird to you?
No, because that's for the state prosecutors to handle. That's not a federal case.
I see. So it's this crossing state lines that suddenly puts it in the federal bucket. And then do you think, let's say you're correct, that these are what come in from the jury. Does that mean that there will be an appeal? Does that mean there'll still be state charges? What's ahead for Diddy?
Okay, so first, let's say it's counts 2, 3, 4, 5, not guilty. That means that he's forever discharged from those crimes. He can never be brought anywhere in federal court again. The racketeering, assuming they remain hung, meaning they can't decide unanimously that he's guilty, they have the right to retry him if they would like on that charge. I'm sure that they'll find out what the division was, how many felt that they had proven the case, and then consider that. If, however, he's guilty of counts 2, 3, 4, 5, and they remain hung on the racketeering, then there'll definitely be an appeal after he's sentenced to a buttload of time for what are very serious felony charges.
What kind of time do you think he's looking at?
Decades.
Him guilty.
I mean,
Decades
the maximum sentence the maximum sentence on counts, let's see, 2 and 3, I believe, are 20 years. And then the maximum is 10 and 10. So consecutively, if the judge throws the book at him, and I don't think he should because he's got no priors, at least in federal court, we're talking about 60 years. That's the maximum sentence.
I hear you. If he were not such a high-profile individual, would they have done this? You know what I'm saying?
Yes. I mean, the direct answer is who knows? Politics does play a role, but I'd like to think so. I'd like to think if there was a video of anyone else beating the heck out of somebody, and then they learned that that person was involved in freak-offs, again, assuming this to be true, let's do it from the government side, and assuming that person was using coercion, threats, force to make people do things, and they're being sex trafficked, and he's engaged in numerous criminal acts that constitute racketeering, and he's transferring prostitutes over state lines. I'd like to think it's not just because he's a big music mogul who likes lube and Astroglide.
Would if he, let's say all those 2, 3, 4, and 5 are not guilty, would then the state likely go after him, or does the state go after him even if the federal charges are guilty?
Anything is possible. I think that they let it go. I think that the feds took the biggest bite out of the apple, and I think my guess is they probably won't pick up those charges.
I don't know. I got a feeling he's going to be a hard person to find guilty. I get your logic on, let's say the hung part of the jury is just one person, right? One person who doesn't think he's guilty of racketeering, and everybody else thinks I'm sorry, beg your pardon. It's the other way around. Let's think everybody thinks he's not guilty of racketeering. Right. One person thinks he is. That one person could let him go on some of the other charges, right?
Anything is possible. Again, my prediction is an opinion. Everyone's got one. But listen, to your point that there's one lone juror, we got a note yesterday within 60 minutes of deliberation where the foreperson gathered everybody outside because he knows when you do a note, that's a really big deal. And everybody comes back to the courtroom and that note said, we, all the jurors, think that juror, a 51-year-old scientist who has a domestic partner, isn't following the law. That's within 60 minutes. If you ever see a note like that, it's usually days after deliberation, if ever. I never thought that they would be able to unify at all after that and come up with any unanimity on any charges. And goodness, they have on 4 of the 5.
Wait, I'm not quite following. What is it that they're saying that one scientist has been doing? That he just
Not
made up his
following
mind
the law.
independent of the law?
No,
What does that mean?
nobody-
As a non-lawyer, I know what that means.
Well,
Not
as a
following the
human
judge's
being,
directions.
is there a female voice? Where's that coming from? Was that in my head? Did I just hear a female voice?
That was me.
That is.
Who is that?
I don't know. You're being a little sexist. That is the voice of God. How dare you?
Maybe. I didn't know that was real. So no one knows because no one's in the jury room. I can only tell you, and then we speculate. You know a lot about people's minds. There is one juror who the foreperson, along with the other jurors, claimed was not following the law. What does that mean?
I know what that means. Yeah, what does that mean?
We don't know. We can speculate.
I wish
don't
Emily
know.
was here right now because she reported on that. She said that this person wasn't following the judge's instructions. That's what was in print that I saw.
see. So he was like,
Nobody- hold on.
maybe.
Nobody-
Or she.
That's speculation. Nobody, it's a he.
No, I think
It's
she was there.
Well, no, hold on.
Okay.
No one is inside the damn jury room. Do you understand? No
Yeah,
one's
yeah.
Oh, I
inside
see.
the
I see what
jury
you're
room.
saying.
So
No one knows for
knows
sure. Yeah.
what that means. It
Yeah.
could mean, come on, man, we all think he's guilty or innocent. You're not, following what the judge is telling you to do. Or, it could be their interpretation of how he's deliberating. No one knows what that consists of.
I'm going to bet that I just have a feeling about
51-year-old
this.
scientist.
I just have a feeling, and I could be totally wrong, and I have no business speculating because I know nothing about this, your field, Mark. But I would just say, to me, it kind of feels like that would be someone who is decided he's guilty based on some material that the judge told them to disregard, something like that.
And I can go 15 different ways.
Anything's possible.
That's just
Yes.
anything is possible. Listen, I told this on the network. Listen to me. In my first federal trial, they sent a note, big federal trial, and the note said, "What dose, DOSE?" They couldn't spell does. Unanimous mean. They couldn't spell unanimous. They didn't know what it meant, and the judge had just told them in jury instructions. And this was written by the foreperson, the grand poobah of these jurors. So never think you know what these jurors are thinking.
Just if you can tell us what happened in that case.
Well, I hung them up in spite of video evidence proving that my client did it. I hung the jury up, and then that went to trial again, and I hung the jury up. And then the third time the judge got tired of it, let my client's entire criminal history, which dated back to the disco crisis, come into evidence. And that was it. The jurors had enough.
And he's in prison.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You're doing God's work, Mark.
Could have taken.
And so,
Hold on, could have taken credit for time served. They lowered the offer down to credit for time served. The guy looked at me and said, "Yeah, but when I get in trouble again, they're going to use these convictions against me. You're excellent. You can win this trial." And I'm like, "Dude, don't do it. Just get out of jail. What are you doing?" And he gambled, and he got a few decades.
Oh,
wow,
boy.
that's wild.
Yeah.
It's so funny, Mark, that since we last were together, I have had to deal with some criminal types here and there, and I realized.
But enough about your staff.
I have I have no problem with pathology, but real criminals, criminality, that is mysterious to me. And the one thing that I find in that population is this tendency to think that everything's bullshit. Just everything's bullshit to them. And you can't convince them that anybody cares about anything or that anything's that there's value in anything. Everything's going to BS. It's, whose ox can you gore, as my dad used to say. So.
Great metaphor.
Yes. So sorry. Okay. So what is Emily or Caleb, is Emily around? Is she available?
I think she's in court.
Yeah, she might be at the court right now.
And she's not willing to come in or text us or give us any update on what they're hearing.
No, I've been texting her, but Mike, they take your phones, right? When you go into the courthouse?
Of course, yeah. Not attorneys, but you regular human people. Yeah.
Yeah, I assume she had to hand over her. If the verdict was coming up, she probably went right into the courtroom.
How have you felt the case has been going? Have you felt it's been being defended properly? And do you feel like the Prosecution, has that done an appropriate job?
Absolutely. Everyone is doing their job effectively. You there? Did I lose you?
Yeah, we're here. You broke up a little bit. We're here. Go ahead.
Good. Yeah. Everyone is doing their job effectively. The government is doing a phenomenal job trying to convince them that a charge reserved for Al Capone, right, applies to Diddy in this situation. The defense is doing a great job raising reasonable doubt. It wasn't rape, it was regret, right? This is not coercion, it's consent. Everybody's doing a great job, and it comes down to these jurors and what's in their minds when they come to the courthouse. They've got decades of experience.
It's really interesting. I spoke with a guest here last week, and she persuaded me that blackmail is a bigger problem or a bigger instrument. It's used more by the government and the intelligence agencies, the military, than any of us really know. And it was sort of an interesting view of the world to hear her talk about that. And, everyone thought that this Diddy case was going to be another example of some sort of blackmail enterprise, much like the, I'm blanking on the guy's name, the Epstein, right. Is that going on here? Is that embedded in this in any way in your mind? And is it as big of a problem as Miss Stilwell, that's my guest name, was convincing me it is, and used regularly by various elements in the government?
Okay, it's you thought through the lens that I look at the world, and I've been in the criminal arena 33 years in spite of my youthful appearance. Arena, really? Look, I don't believe that there's anything sinister going on here as far as why they brought charges. Start with looking at that videotape again. Look at what he did to her. That doesn't anger you and show you how he inflicts violence upon people so easily. And then you find out what he's done for decades to so many people. I'm not out there protesting that they picked a battle on him.
Mm-hmm. So you don't think there was something more to his enterprises?
I don't have a problem with them bringing a prosecution, right? Does politics play into it? I have no idea. I mean, it does in many cases. I've been the victim of that. In this particular case, could there be something going on behind the scenes that I'm not aware of? Maybe. Am I okay with this prosecution? You're damn right I am.
Can you talk about where you were victimized by politics? I'm angry with anybody doing that to you.
Well, yeah. I mean, the biggest case of my career is when I represented Scott Peterson, the one with one T, not the one who killed his wife, but one T, who was during the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas shooting, was labeled the coward of Broward, who didn't go into the 1200 building where Nicholas Cruz was killing innocent students and staff. And they claimed that erroneously that he knew where that's coming from and chose not to go in and allowed kids to be killed. That was 101. There was ample evidence showing that he was innocent. It took me 4 years and his life savings to defend this case. And fortunately, I saved him from a life sentence, but it was politics all the way through.
Wow, that's awful. All right, Mark. Well, listen, it's always great to see you. Is there anything, is that the courtroom we're looking at right now?
Yeah, it's the live feed in case something happens.
Yeah.
Like in case they come running out with an announcement. I think it would take more than a couple of minutes.
She needs her phone. I think
the judges, there's not going to be a verdict right away. The judge is reading what we call an Allen charge, telling them that we're all counting on them, that we spent a lot of money, time, and energy. No future jury is going to get it right, any better than you. Go back there and listen to each other. Be open to your thoughts. It's a standard thing. Google it. Allen charge. And that's what he's reading to the jurors and send them back to deliberate more.
To try to see if they can convince that scientist of the whatever side he needs to be persuaded to.
We don't know if it's him, right? It could be anybody else. It could be a group of people. You have no idea. Everybody pretends to know. They don't know.
No, I have no idea. I have no idea. Zero. And it'd be interesting to see what happens given I have a feeling about it, but who knows if that's in any way related to reality.
So they don't give any of that information out at this point in time, right? Who
about
is
2, 3, 4, 5?
Who's the troublemaker?
No.
Okay.
They have to finish their deliberations, right, before they give the entire jury verdict.
They can come out with another note and give as much information that they want. They haven't been shy in doing that, especially with the note from yesterday outing the specific juror who was pissing them off. So they can tell us, but the judge can't inquire. We can't find out. We cannot get involved in their deliberations. They are sacred deliberations.
Well, that's good.
Mark, I have a couple of minutes here. Is there anything else on your radar these days that you want to make people aware of?
Just listen. I mean, if you're actually giving me an open forum, I just want to tell people life is short. The last decade went like this. Choose to be happy. It has nothing to do with anybody else around you. It's all what goes on inside your head. Just choose to be happy. You deserve it. It's your birthright.
You mean the decade since we were last working together?
Right. It went fast.
Evaporated in 5 minutes for you too?
Listen to his words, Drew.
Look at you. Your hair turned white. I mean, like overnight, 10 years. And look,
Yeah, the hair turned white, though, when I was 32. That's the problem.
that was the joke. But anyway, all right, on a serious note, choose happiness. All right, I'm running, Drew. Love you. Thank you. Appreciate it.
God bless.
Talk to you soon. Say hi to your wife for us.
Thank you for everything.
Thanks, Mark. Let me get the particulars
send him
on
some bone broth.
speaktomark.com, also at Mark Eiglarsh on Facebook and Instagram.
Some V-Shred vitamins.
Eiglarsh Law, for what? Because does he look tired to you or something?
I like him.
I'm going to get him some bone broth, some supplements.
I haven't thought of him in a long time, and I saw him on Ashley Banfield with Emily, and I went, "Oh my God, they'd be so great together," because they put them together on that show.
Yes, they would be good together.
But Emily Hagan is in the courtroom, and she'll probably give us sort of a rundown from a layman's
just got
view
out
of what's going on in there.
What's that, Caleb?
She says she just got out, so we're trying to get her logged in on Zoom right now.
Okay.
Oh, good. So we'll see if we can get her sort of her opinion.
Yeah, and I was hoping they would meet each other and get to chit chat, but maybe another time.
She may have some questions for him, but I don't expect them to really have much to share.
It would have been
at this
good,
point.
but anyways, we'll get the inside scoop, and I'm glad it happened right now. This is perfect timing for the show. So
let me quickly look at our
tell a
restreaming
friend.
things. See what you guys are talking about. Nicholas Cruz, you guys are worried about. Interesting. I think that's the guy in Idaho, right? Or wherever that shooting was.
No, it's the other one. The guy in Idaho, that was an interesting twist that recently happened. The Idaho guy, Koberger, he's going to plead guilty for a plea deal.
He's suddenly pleaded, yeah.
So they don't give him the death penalty.
Yeah. What a waste of a brain. He seemed like he was educated and smart, but what a way to waste his life.
He was preoccupied with serial killer, wasn't he? Was that sort of what he was studying in college?
What an interesting rabbit hole.
It's like it's too much. It's like if that was a script for a movie, you go, no one would quite believe that. It's a little too much. It's over the top.
And it's also they'll always get you. Like this guy's, as professional criminal could be, he literally studied crime and forensics, and they still got him.
I know.
So
I get it.
Don't do crimes, guys. All right, I'm going to bring Emily in.
AKA Arizona UPEP. I'm taking 10,000 international units of vitamin D. What are the odds of kidney stones? If you're getting hypercalcemia and you take a lot of oxalates, then your kidney stone risk goes up. But it's not as though vitamin D is a direct correlation. You need to get your vitamin D level checked. And really what I worry about more with high levels of vitamin D is sort of bony growths where they don't belong, that kind of thing. And also, you get liver toxicity ultimately. So let's get that. And Howard Vega is making fun of Caleb. He says, I hate it when psychopaths waste their life with murder.
That's what Caleb said.
Emily, what's going on at the courtroom? We just talked to Mark Eiglarsh, your compatriot. Go ahead.
Well, it started earlier today. I was sorry I'm late, but I was stuck because they have announced that they have reached a verdict on 4 counts, but are undecided on count 1. Did you already see the news?
Yes, we did see that.
So everybody gasped. Diddy's looking very, very worried. Before they announced the no, he comes in, his hands were sweaty. And then all of a sudden you see Tenny and all of the lawyers in a circle around him. We're like, are they doing a prayer? And then you see Diddy going like this 3 times. And then they finally read the no. And then he kind of chills out a little bit.
Oh, sorry, I didn't know you were on the real news.
Everybody's in shock right now. They don't know what it's going to be. It got really heated in the room. I got in a fight with someone. I almost got kicked out because now I feel personally invested in this trial.
That's cool.
And
Why,
I think
you started saying he wasn't guilty.
I'm not going to say what I was saying, but because it was actually crazier than that. What I said was actually something that. Thank God it wasn't recorded and that no one had a phone in that room. That's all I'm saying, because I started saying some crazy things because the tensions are hot. But here's the weird part that Susan will appreciate. Right before we went inside, everyone was partying. They were blasting Kanye's new album. People were like, oh, and the Turkish broadcaster from the BBC said, I have a weird feeling that when the verdict comes, the weather is going to change. And then literally it started pouring rain and we all rushed in. And then 5 minutes later is when they announced that they had come to the verdict. So it was pouring rain, right? It was so weird. She predicted that. Here's what I
go back and find her and see what else she's predicting.
Bring her on the show.
Yeah, Susan wants to talk to her for her show. So I have a feeling. Yeah. So I'm guessing the judge read their instructions to go back in and try to reach a unanimous decision, right?
Well, so the holiday's affecting the verdict because their court's supposed to be off Thursday and Friday. So the government wanted them to be like insert some like thing, and then Mark Eiglarsh said, "I don't think it's fair to. I think it's fair to do that because then the jury might rush their decision based on wanting the day off on Thursday. So let's not announce that they might have to come Thursday until end of day tomorrow." So they finally agreed on that.
Yeah.
Interesting.
My friend at TMZ is laughing at me.
Well, tell them hi for me.
Say hi. Do you know Dr. Drew?
Yes, of course. We'll be like
TMZ.
Of course, I know all those guys. I have a feeling. Okay, you tell me if my feeling is, and I don't know anything about this stuff, and I've only know about this case insofar as my following of your reporting. But it seems to me like that one scientist that they called out as not following the law is probably not following the judge's instructions. And my bet is he's the one holdout on guilty for the racketeering and probably hanging on to some material that the judge told them to disregard. He's probably basing his opinion about that. And if that's true, I'm going to say that 2, 3, 4, and 5 are also not guilty.
Are you live right now?
Yeah.
You just recorded it right now.
No, I'm on live.
Oh, sorry.
You think it's not guilty on 2 through 5?
Yeah.
Well, Diddy
Diddy
didn't act like that. The way the defense was acting right now, they were acting like he was guilty on all 4 counts. But here's the thing I want to remind everyone. Just because it's fast doesn't mean it's guilty, because OJ was less than 4 hours and he was found not guilty. So people keep forgetting about how long, but they had a long trial and those jurors want to get out of there. So it is a little bit different.
You know, and I talked to Eiglarsh about my thought about this too, and he said, you know, who knows, but when you look at that domestic violence tape, it's hard just to let him go. That's his position. It's just like, how do you let that guy go when he so easily beats the shit out of somebody?
Oh my God, there we are. Who's streaming that? Who's streaming?
Wait, are you in that shot somewhere?
I'm right here. Look at my arms in the air.
No way.
I'm the girl crouched down in front of the gold door.
That's hilarious.
The gold door.
This is so meta.
Well, Emily, listen, we always appreciate your reporting and your good humor, and I'm dying to know. I'll keep it secret. Whatever you said in the courtroom that nearly got you your face beat in.
How are you feeling after all this? Yeah,
I'm ready to come home.
All right, fair enough. All
yeah.
right. Well, listen, We're going to let you go.
Also, I was worried about being late, and my friend goes, if Dr. Drew would never be mad at you. He will be proud of you that you're in that room for the verdict. And I was like, all right, I guess I'll stay.
That's true.
Worth it.
She said, there's no way.
No, it's fine.
They're like, there's no way.
We appreciate whatever crumbs you have for us.
I wish you could have met Mark Eiglarsh. He had a lot to say. I thought you guys would get along. So
I'll watch
maybe
it back.
next time.
Yeah, I'll watch it
We'll figure that out. We'll do something maybe some other time. All right. Thanks,
Okay,
Emily.
thanks for
Emily knows
having me.
everything. Find her there.
Bye.
You got it. Emily with an IE. All right. We're going to take a break. And when we get back, we're going to be visited by Kari Lake.
Imagine.
The Wellness Company knows that taking charge of your family's healthcare is a top priority. And that's why they're constantly innovating to deliver the products and services to help you be rationally ready. Be sure to have the medical kit for kids on hand, whether you're a parent or grandparent. It treats 20 childhood conditions, including nausea and vomiting, allergies, asthma, inflammatory illnesses, even bioterror, God forbid. Listen, croup, ear infections, lice, it's all available in the pediatric emergency kit. You can also order the kids kit with an EpiPen should your child be at risk of anaphylaxis. And those EpiPens are carefully sourced and well priced relative to other EpiPens in the market. All 7 kits, each customized for a different purpose, come with a telemedicine consultation and a guidebook. Skip the scramble to an urgent care waiting room full of sick people and expense, or a pharmacy where there's no guarantee they'll have what you need. Go to drdrew.com/TWC for 10% off any medical emergency kit, or the supplements for that matter. That again is drdrew.com/TWC. Every household should have a bottle of active skin repair as part of your first aid supplies. It comes in a spray or hydrogel, and it's great for babies and kids as well. The healing solution for your home actually started out in the hospital. I sat down with CEO Justin Gardner.
I had started to give it out to all my friends and family, and I could see people just became evangelical about it.
Right.
And when we started to joke, we called it the WD-40 skin repair.
My personal experience was with our infant granddaughter, Eloise. There she is. Her parents were already using it before we ever heard of it to deal with diaper rash, irritation, and then I wound up sustaining a wound during a workout at a hotel gym overseas. And I was so happy to have active skin repair in my suitcase.
Hyperchlorous acid and what's our active ingredient in active skin repair, over 100 peer-reviewed clinical articles on it. It's cool because it's really powerful, but simple science. We're replicating the same molecule that your white blood cells produce.
Justin's company also makes a fantastic face and body hydrating serum. I use it every day. It's made with hyaluronic acid, another molecule our bodies produce. If you would like some for 20% off an already great price, go to drdrew.com/skin repair. That is drdrew.com/skin repair.
That's brilliant. And thank you, Drew. Where's Dr. Drew? Where is he? Dr. Drew. Dr. Drew.
And Caleb, do we have Kari signed in? I'll give all the particulars if she's available yet. Is she there?
She's here.
Okay, Kari Lake is the special advisor to the United States Agency for Global Media, oversees, amongst other things, Voice of America. You can follow Kari at Kari Lake on X, Kari, and KariLake.com. Kari, thank you so much again for joining us.
Oh, I'm happy to be here. I'm looking forward to chatting with you. It's been a little while.
It has been a minute. How do you find your life in Washington? How is that going?
Well, you know, I'm not a creature of Washington, D.C., but I'm happy to be here. I'm really fighting hard for the American taxpayer, and I'm honored to be part of the President Trump administration to put America first, and that's exactly what we're doing. So while I miss Arizona, and I miss just the wonderful people of Arizona, I know that what I'm doing here will have an impact on not only the people of Arizona's lives, but all the people in all 50 states. And so we're working hard. I'm happy to be part of it. And it's been exciting. It's been a little rough and tumble because we're being met with massive resistance. You would think that everybody in America, Democrat, Republican, whatever your political affiliation is, would want to make sure an agency is run with full transparency, that no tax dollars are being wasted. You would think that if you were told and if you found out that there were spies being funneled into an agency, you'd want that to stop. And you would think that if you found out that a media agency that was designed to put out America's story to international audiences was actually, in many occasions, putting out an anti-American story or news that was hurtful and harmful to American interests, that everybody would say, we got to fix that. But unfortunately, that's not how DC is. And there's a lot of people in different political affiliations who are okay with that kind of an agency. I'm not, President Trump is not, and we are going to fix this and turn it around. So we're working really hard.
It does seem so odd. It seems so odd when people want to support things that are sort of uncannily destructive and or expensive. I feel like this administration has got momentum and states are beginning to follow suit. Even California is talking about streamlining and reducing red tape. The whole sort of Doge phenomenon has kind of caught on. But isn't it odd when people still resist wasting money in Washington, or is that just how they feel they're privileged?
You know, I think if you've been involved in politics, which I somehow found my way into few years ago when I quit my job in the media and ended up being recruited by the people of Arizona to jump into politics, you realize that these politicians actually create the problems that we all complain about. They create the problems. They want problems so that they can then pour taxpayer money into it and say they're trying to solve the problem, when in fact, solving these problems is a lot easier than they let on to. And so I'm not surprised by it. I'm saddened, though, that we have this opportunity with a transformative president like President Trump to actually turn things around and get our country back on track, and that there's so much resistance from the courts, where we've got judges wearing black robes who are really they're really politicians, or, in the case of many of our court cases that have been launched against us, these judges want to run an agency. And I kind of joke around a little bit and say, if you really want to work in an executive branch agency, you need to go to usajobs.gov and apply. But right now you're a judge and you need to follow the Constitution, and we're just not getting that. There's so much waste in DC. We saw it with USAID, just shocking amounts of waste. We're seeing the same thing at my agency. $850,000 of your tax dollars, the hardworking men and women out there who are watching, going to fund a New York City a concert in New York City. $100,000 to fund an Afghan cricket team. $70,000 to do a study on whether Mac computers can help with social distancing during COVID. I can go on and on. We find out that people who are in charge of doing the contracts at our agency are actually giving contracts to family members, which is illegal. And then, to me, the most shocking stuff, there's several things. We're finding out that there's a history of hiring known spies, or people who are from foreign countries that are known enemies of America, and we're bringing people in without doing proper background checks. There are times that they've hired spies, Russian propagandists who've come in to push anti-American propaganda. And shockingly, at this agency that puts out media across the globe about America, nobody in the agency, including myself, I don't have any power over the content being pushed out. So if they choose to put anti-American, pro-CCP content, I can't pick up the phone and call the newsroom and say, stop doing that, because they have put in an editorial firewall to really Trump-proof the agency. It's a rogue agency. This is why President Trump wants to eliminate it, and I'm working to do that.
Is that the plan? Just get rid of it? I'd rather my tax dollars be saved. There must be better ways, especially in today's world. Radio, who cares? Let's put some other ways of putting up American interest through the internet.
You made a great point. I mean, they've been resistant to modernizing. They're still doing 1990s style TV and radio. I mean, thank God, Dr. Drew, that the federal government never started up a typewriter factory 84 years ago when this agency was lined up. Because if they did, I would assure you that typewriter factory would still be operational in DC. They'd be calling to expand it and pour more money into it. They never want to modernize. They never want to shrink things down. They never want to say mission accomplished. We don't need the money to be spent here anymore. That's just not how it operates. President Trump put out an executive order calling for this agency to be shrunk down to its statutory minimum, and that's what we're doing. I've eliminated 85% of the workforce. We are in the process of scaling it down to only covering the languages that are required by law. And then next fiscal year, starting in October, President Trump wants us to eliminate the agency. So I'm working to effectuate that as well. You're right. Our tax dollars could be spent more wisely elsewhere. And especially since this agency is not in alignment with our long-term interests and our national policy.
I want to share with our viewers a clip. You're going to set it up for me. Speaking to Representative Stanton, I think, and you'd mentioned how you had transitioned out of your career in media into politics, and you know I'm a fan, particularly of how your poise and clarity and management of these people who either are in the media or want to commandeer the media. And this was a great example of sort of classic Kari Lake. Can you set that up for us?
You came in late, and
here it is.
You want to hear it first?
Wait, let's let Kari set up. Go ahead. Let's let Kari set up first.
Yeah. Well, so I went and spoke before a hearing last week at the House Foreign Affairs Committee. It was called Spies, Lies, and Mismanagement, talking about how this agency's been infested with spies over the years, how they've lied to the public with the content they're putting out. The CCP has more say over the content that goes out on VOA than someone such as myself, and how they've mismanaged our funds.
Wait a minute.
Yes.
Say that again, because that's an extraordinary statement. How's that possible?
Well, we do a language service called Mandarin language. We do a Mandarin language, and several times a year, the people who worked in Mandarin, the managers there, would go to the Chinese embassy in Washington, D.C., and CCP officials would tell them how they should be covering China. Can you imagine that? And they would go to China and do visits there and let CCP officials tell them how they should be covering the CCP and China. It's absolutely obscene that was happening, and it should be illegal. It might be illegal. So I'm setting this up and laying all this out. And we had some really good questions. I must say the majority of the questions that were meaningful came from the Republicans. I think this should be a bipartisan issue. The Democrats were attacking me, and Greg Stanton, who used to be the mayor of Phoenix, not a very effective mayor, who's now a congressman, chose to spend 5 minutes trying to berate me for having the courage to fight for election integrity. And I just happened to use an example that I thought he could relate to about how we need to have control over some of the messaging going out over this billion-dollar agency across the globe as it pertains to America, so that lies aren't being told. And now you can go ahead and play that clip. But you weren't here, you came in late, and we're talking about USAGM today, the Agency for Global Media, and how they can put out absolute abject lies, and we can't control we have no say over what the editorial content is, and I would hope that you would not be okay with that. They could literally put out a lie about anybody here, and I know you've been the victim of that. I remember the stories about you where they said you had a gay lover, and those were going on.
Mr. Chairman.
Lies are being told on Voice of America. It's inappropriate. You've been subjected to lies that you said were lies about you in the media before. And how would you like it if those lies were put on Voice of America right now?
Sorry about Caleb's editorial excesses, but he couldn't resist himself. But I actually, I know people are listening carefully. I listen very carefully when you talk, and you set that up so beautifully. You got him on two fronts. I know you came in late, Congressman, and secondly, of course, you wouldn't want any lies to be spread about you. Oh, wait a minute, there was one. I thought it was brilliant.
I thought he could relate to that. He sat for 5 minutes. He didn't ask a question about how we can make sure that we don't have national security risk situation, how we can make sure we're watching over, being stewards of the tax money that is being spent there, or any other issue. And I thought, well, maybe he can relate to that. He spent 5 minutes berating me, lying about me, telling people that I'm a liar. It was just absolutely horrible. He was completely off topic. He didn't care about the issue and why we were there. And I thought, you know what, maybe if I give him something he can relate to, then he will understand better. And, those were the stories that were going around, that he was, having extracurricular activities behind his family's back. And those were going around. Now, he said they were lies. And, you know, I just thought he could relate to that because those kind of so-called lies could get put out there again today on an outlet like VOA. And he couldn't even pick up the phone and say, stop doing that. They're lies, because we have what they call an editorial firewall that prevents anybody in the government from stopping them. It's insane.
Well, it is insane. And we appreciate your service and we appreciate your diligence. And I wish you the success in bringing this thing to its knees, because it's time. There's so much, and it's just one of so many things that need to be undone in Washington. Truly. I'm just glad you're stewarding this one.
Can I say one more thing really quickly? I did find out in the last about a month and a half that at VOA, there is a crime investigation going on. They're investigating 2 years of threatening phone calls that have been launched against a sitting member of Congress, threatening phone calls over a 2-year span. And they found out they originated at Voice of America. I mean, this shows you the bias there. And they were launched toward a beloved Republican member of Congress, and they were originating from inside the Voice of America. Can you even imagine? Taxpayers are paying for this. Taxpayers are paying for the people who work there, and somebody in that building spent 2 years making threatening phone calls to a sitting member of Congress. I think that's a big story. The mainstream media won't cover it because it was a congressman who happens to be Republican who was on the receiving end of that, and they really appear to not care about that kind of thing if it was a Republican.
My mind would have been blown by that 3 or 4 years ago, but so many aspects of the COVID experience opened up the door to me understanding the hubris and the extraordinary aggression of the bureaucratic entrenchment and the bureaucratic elements, that they really do believe they're in charge or should be in charge and are sort of hubristically able to do as they want to do whenever they want to do it, kind of thing. And it would be mind-boggling were there not so much evidence of this all over the place. And so best of luck, Kari. Thank you so much for joining us.
That's what they meant by it's a threat to our democracy. They really meant it's a threat to the bureaucracy, and they're trying to protect the bureaucracy. We are trying to protect America. And so I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me, Dr. Drew.
You bet, Kari. That is exactly the way I feel about this. The bureaucracy is the enemy and democracy is the solution. Freedom, fresh air, exposing people to the truth. That's what's is needed right now. Thank you, Kari. Hopefully we'll be in touch one day soon. KariLake.com, the Senior Advisor for U.S. Agency for Global Media, Kari Lake. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next up, we have another guest. So this is an action-packed afternoon here with us.
He's coming John He's Carney. Not quite here
I love
yet.
it.
I understand. I want to talk about John Carney a little bit. He grew up in and around New York City. And he is, I'm going to give you his specific title. He's an economic analyst. Hold on here. I'm going to get it for you. John Carney, he works for Breitbart, and he's sort of an economic analyst there and journalist. Gosh, I don't have a specific title. Caleb, do you have the actual title for John there anywhere? Any event, he's an excellent source to be able to put his finger a little bit for us on the potential economic carnage that we could expect from somebody like Mamdani coming in and going for, what did he say? Maybe, Caleb, you want to play the tape of him talking about taking over the means of production. Do you have that available?
Yes, I'm pulling it up right now.
Okay. This is he won the primary, the Democratic primary in the mayoral race in New York City. And he's an unapologetic socialist. In fact, if you listen to his ideas, he is interested in class conflict and ultimately interested in overtaking the means of production, which is an absolute explicit, not even encoded, an explicit call for communism. And seemingly no sense that what he's talking about has been tried or has failed, or that we weren't going to try something different or new. This is an old school Leninist communist idea. And let's remind ourselves that, I've read a lot about Lenin, and he was from a different time when the means of production meant a factory, and that labor in a factory was what Marx was interested in. He had no concept of the kind of service economy that we have today, or that the technological advances. This doesn't even apply to the present moment of history. Now, I have seen the mayoral candidate talk about taking over neighborhoods, which, by the way, had been done in the 1960s in New York City. And now they want to tear down all those buildings. Susie, you know those buildings that on the 20s and 10th Avenue? All the projects, they so-called, which are now sort of these monolithic, almost Soviet-style living environments that people hate. They're going to tear them down and make something more livable for people, because this idea of taking over and having a centralized authority do what's good for everybody, you end up with what's bad for everybody. Let's see. John Carney is Breitbart News finance and economics editor, publisher of the Breitbart Business Digest newsletter. Larry Kudlow of Fox calls a must-read. Is John available now, Caleb?
He's not here yet, but he should be coming in. Okay. But I have the clip if you want to play it.
Then let's play the.
We told him to come in at 3 o'clock.
That's fine.
Let's play 6 minutes.
We told him to come at 2:50.
Well, I did. No, I don't think he heard me.
Okay. But let's play the tape of Mamdani and his sort of his interview and his ideas here. And he's very persuasive. I see why people like him. I'm sure he's a good person, but his ideas are kind of wild if you study history. So go ahead.
What the purpose is about this entire project, it's not simply to raise class consciousness, but to win socialism. And obviously raising class consciousness is a critical part of that. But making sure that we have candidates that both understand that and are willing to put that forward at every which moment that they have, at every which opportunity that they're given. We have to continue to elect more socialists, and we have to ensure that we are unapologetic about our socialism. There are also other issues that we firmly believe in, whether it's BDS, right, or whether it's the end goal of ceasing the means of production, where we do not have the same level of support at this very moment. And what I want to say is that it is critical that in the way that we organize, in the way that we set up our work and our priorities, that we do not leave any one issue for the other, that we do not meet a moment and only look at what people are ready for, but that we are doing both of these things in tandem.
John Carney, I read your particulars and your how do people can follow you, but seizing the means of production, does that not send a chill down your spine?
It does. I think it's terrifying. I think a lot of people don't realize what they voted for and who they voted for. He didn't run on seize the means of production. He ran on the rent is too high and this weird promise that he's going to bring government-owned grocery stores to people, which I should say, my brother Tim Carney has an article out about this in the Washington Examiner. It's apparently just based on a reading comprehension problem he had. He thought, so to back up, Mamdani has promised that he was going to open a dozen city-owned grocery stores that would charge less, but also have all the great stuff you could get at grocery stores. He said that the city was spending $140 million to subsidize private grocery stores. Turns out that's not true at all. There are tax breaks available to grocery stores if you open them in a poor neighborhood that doesn't have enough groceries, that the government thinks doesn't have enough grocery stores. But that $140 million figure is actually how much the private sector invested. It's not like there's a pot of money with $140 million. Mamdani thinks there is a pot of money with $140 million. So he can't do even some of the things he promised because the money isn't there. And I think a lot of people in New York have a sense that there is something wrong with the city. And frankly, a lot of the other candidates, including former Governor Cuomo, really didn't offer they ran bad campaigns. They didn't offer much in terms of solution. So I think people were willing to go with, the guy who promised solutions, even if, ultimately they're not realistic and not really what we want.
I hope they're not what people want, because it's going to be, I would imagine, to be economic carnage for the city. Am I wrong?
No, you're right. Look, a lot of people. So I grew up in New York City. It's my hometown. I lived there back in the 1980s and early 90s when it was a very, very dangerous place. A lot of the city never experienced that. There are people who moved in after Rudolph Giuliani and Michael Bloomberg fixed a lot of what had gone wrong in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. So I think they may not realize that things can get really bad very quickly. And we've seen that in other cities, by the way. New York has held up okay. We survived de Blasio. Adams hasn't, he's done weird things. Hasn't been the perfect mayor. But when you look at what's happened to cities like Portland, they can fall apart very quickly. And I think if this guy, Mamdani, does even half of what he's promised, it has a potential to be a disaster. He wants to take police out of neighborhoods that have high crime and replace them with social workers. I mean, I can guess that the gang members in New York probably voted for that because they too would like to have social workers rather than police. But the normal people who live in areas,
we tried it here. It was tried in Los Angeles. It was an abject failure. Remember, we were going to reimagine policing, and we had these. I forget what they called them, but they were 120-pound young women who were immediately endangered by all this. It was just ridiculous. It was such an absurd idea.
You'll need more cops because now you have to send the cops out to protect the poor social workers who went to, Oberlin, who you're then sending into bad neighborhoods to go resolve marital problem. It's going to be more dangerous. And he also, at the same time, wanting to, stop law enforcement, make city buses free, which would become a big expense for the city. He also then wants to raise taxes. This is a pretty lethal combination because if crime goes up and your taxes go up, that is the cue for a lot of people, not the billionaires. A billionaire, he always talks about billionaires. Billionaires are fine. They barely set foot on the city streets. But ordinary middle-class people, when crime goes up and taxes go up, that's their symbol. I'm out.
How many billionaires live in New York City? 100? I mean, how many really are there? And then how many 100 millionaires? 50? 100?
It's not as many as people think. So New York does actually have the biggest population of billionaires in the world. But most of them, first of all, aren't there most of the time. I'll just say they might own, like some guy from Abu Dhabi probably owns an apartment somewhere in New York City, but he's not really there. Right. There's probably at any given time 20 billionaires in around New York City. There's not that many. They're not the problem. It is, as you were saying, there aren't even that many 100 millionaires. It's people who might have a couple $1 million, who can afford, who are really the backbone of the city financially, because their taxes support, and their taxes support the police, the fire department, the MTA. They also, their donations support all of the cultural institutions in our city. If we lose them, we already lost a whole bunch during COVID. A lot of people, good friends of mine, moved out of New York City because the city was too locked down. They shut down the schools. It wasn't worth staying. This would be another kick to the upper middle class of New York, and it would be disastrous.
So I have a couple of things I want to get into. One is when I think of government stores, I think of the Grapes of Wrath. Literally, that's what is in my head. Everyone read Grapes of Wrath or go watch the Henry Fonda film with that was government stores. Number one. Number two, he did also propose this idea of government housing, right? Where he's going to build and does he not understand that all those shitty buildings on the 20s and 10th Avenue and up in the Bronx were that? The government did that in the 60s and it was an abject failure. Does he not understand that? Or he looks at those and think that some developer did that?
I think that is the problem. I don't think he knows enough about New York City's history. Because you're right. The worst housing in New York City was built by the U.S. government, by the state government, the city government, and the federal government. Absolute disaster, crime-ridden, terrible, and there's no sign it's going to get better. In fact, if we tried to build it today, it will cost more and it will be worse because we have so many, new rules and regulations. At least in the 50s and 60s, they could build things. We can't even build things now, so it'll be a bigger disaster.
I did see some developer was talking about redoing that one in like, it's around 29th Street and 10th Avenue. And I was like, oh, this would be okay. They're going to get rid of these government buildings. And then the next day I saw this guy's proposal. I went, oh, impossible. Here we go again. It's,
also,
we're not.
He also has a program to want to freeze rents because we have a crazy system in New York between rent controlled where rents just don't go up at all, rent stabilization where they could go up a tiny little bit, and then there's market rent apartments. But he wants to freeze all the rent stabilized apartments. What that means is it doesn't actually make apartments more affordable for anybody. It means if you already are lucky enough to live in one, then your rent won't go up and you'll never move out. Because why would you? You have a place that while the prices for everybody else goes up, you get to live in a place. I personally know people who have multiple rent stabilized apartments because they've lived in New York for years and years. They inherited it from one set of grandparents and from another set of grandparents. And you can, go online and watch videos of people who are paying 10% of what a market price would be for a beautiful apartment in a good neighborhood. Essentially what these things do is take housing off the market, which then makes the rest of the housing market less affordable for everybody. So it does the opposite of what he claims. It's not going to make housing more affordable. It'll make it less available to people.
We have a place in Southern California that has attempted the same thing. It's a place called Santa Monica, and it's been a mixed bag there, like as you would expect. But this is the point, is that these are warmed over ideas that have been tried repeatedly in the 20th century and failed, which is why we moved away from them. And now we moved away far. Time has gone far enough from them that we have a whole generation of people that seem not to have been exposed to what the consequences were of these warmed over shitty ideas. And they are all sort of steeped in these luxury beliefs. Have you seen Rob Henderson's construct of luxury beliefs? Yeah, these are ideas that elites have about what other people need, when in fact they have no idea how other people live their lives or what they want.
Yeah, I think that's right. I don't think that first of all, the crime thing and the social workers, when you poll people who live in crime-ridden areas, they want more police, not fewer. This is, as you said, like an elite privileged idea that's 180% backwards from what people actually want who are affected by this. I will say, out of sympathy for some of Mamdani's voters, I do think that there was a sort of, we'll call it like the gentrified neighborhoods of Brooklyn. So this like white, not working class, so a white collar group of people. They're actually pretty multicultural, I guess. They're not even necessarily white, but a white collar group that paid a lot for college, that probably have a lot of student loans, have actually found that for a whole variety of reasons, their upside is limited. They're not achieving the middle class existence they had hoped to achieve. So in other words, they're experiencing what, say, like the industrial Midwest experienced 10 and 15 years ago. They're experiencing that now in professional urban areas. And so I get the idea that they want something different. Unfortunately, they didn't vote for something new. As you said, they voted for the warmed over shitty ideas that we long ago learned were bad.
Yeah, I am all for new ideas, and I understand people are frustrated. I'm very sympathetic to that. But to dial back, really, it's humbly, maybe I'm wrong, but humbly I would say the reason things are so constrained for those same people you're describing is enough of these shitty ideas that are lurking around that is screwing with the economy, that the going the other direction. Freedom, again, being sort of the general principle, however you conceive of it, and not abject freedom and not abject free markets, but moving more in the unregulated direction and supporting businesses and supporting people, supporting themselves and building things and growing things and doing what people feel best when they do. And the research is overwhelmingly apparent over and over and over again. This is what helps people thrive, as opposed to being wards of the state, which is how people end up miserable. So I don't know. Humbly, I think this is the wrong direction.
Right.
You have to learn the lesson. I guess you have to go all the way down into the trash bin to really learn it again. I would recommend you study history. I think it's a less expensive way to do it in terms of lives and hours of productive time spent.
Dial up your favorite streaming service and watch The Warriors, watch Death Wish. I mean, if you're wondering what New York can be like, we filmed it all. It's there. You can read it. You can read an article I wrote called "How My Mother Discovered Crack" about the crack era in New York. My mother was not on crack. In case she's watching this, Mom, you helped police crack, but it was but we had really serious problems in New York City, and I think people have lost track of that. It's so easy now to like walk out of a restaurant at midnight and walk home, and people say, "Oh, that's just the way life is." You could not do that in 1984 through 1994 in New York City. The murder rate was 10 times what it is today. They should be very careful about losing the bit of civilization that we were able to recreate through a lot of hard work and frankly, a level of policing that I wish we didn't need in New York, but we do need it. Yeah. Otherwise, we're going to be in a lot of danger.
Yeah. I can tell you're younger than I am because you're speaking with disdain of 84 to 94. That was when things became good again. I was around in the 70s. The Warriors, while though it was cartoonish, was to those of us in the 70s sort of a documentary of what it was like for the, it was.
I was alive then. I was just very young. You
go to Coney Island, that's what Coney Island looked like. It was a blighted, look, Boston was a shit show. Most of our cities were really a mess. And they turned around very quickly. They can go in a good direction very quickly too. And people thrive. That's why once it turns around, people enjoy it. They thrive in those environments. And these other ones, just think if AOC had allowed Amazon to come into Long Island City. Can you imagine what would be going on there now? It would be utopia.
New York could do a lot,
shut
actually,
that down.
By just adopting some very basic, liberty-friendly, free market reforms. It is very hard to start any business in New York. The amount of licenses you need, you have to, believe it or not, if you want to start even just like a small one-person business, you have to take out an advertisement in newspapers for weeks in New York City and to advertise all over the state to announce the formation of your business. By the way, nobody reads those parts of the newspapers. It makes no sense, has no sensible basis. But it is it's fought for by the newspaper, lobbies. But that's just one small example. It is, to try to build a building in New York is almost impossible. So there is so much regulation that stands in the way of businesses, buildings, all of that. We could do a lot just by cutting back on that, rather than saying, "Oh, you know what? We'll have the government start grocery stores."
Yeah,
in some ways, I can't
Gavin Newsom suddenly starts to sound like a sane person. I don't know if you saw his presentation yesterday where he wants to streamline timelines and cut back red tape. Dude, where have you been the last 8 years? Who's been residing over this state? This is a new idea? We know how to fix things. Just dial back all the bullshit we've done over the last 8 years. That's exactly right. Because it doesn't. I wish it did work. Listen, if socialism worked, I'd be all about it. I'm for what works. I'm an empiricist. I think we need to return to empiricism and remove ideology. Whenever ideology rules the day, humans suffer. That's a rule of history. You can see it over and over and over again. So, to be steeped in ideology because someone's father was his father was a Columbia professor and his mother was a Disney executive. He comes from massive privilege. And did he go to Columbia? Is that right too? He also was
I think he went to Columbia. I know his father's a professor there. His father is very radical and left wing.
I'm sure he got free tuition because he got in because of that. He got free tuition because of his dad. Look, you're highly privileged. Why don't you go go live in the streets for a while and talk to people that are there and what really is going on with.
If you look at who voted for him, he was not voted for. The areas that he did the best are actually gentrified or gentrifying areas of New York full of young professionals. He didn't, they keep calling it like this working class coalition. The working class areas of New York voted for Cuomo, actually. They did not vote for Mamdani. They didn't, because they don't like his program. His program is not, it is, as you were saying in the beginning, it is a fantasy of elites rather than a, something that people who are having real trouble in their lives are feeling. Although, again, not to discount it, I do think that there are people who are very frustrated that they entered professions like they're an architect or a lawyer and they're having trouble getting ahead. And so, but
I get it. We need to do something.
Yes.
No, we need to do something. I'm with them. We need to help people. We need to get people engaged and thriving again. And it's just, as a student of history, I humbly think I can speak with some confidence that this is not the way to go. What else are you working on right now? I'm going to let you go in a second. What's coming up for you?
I think it is very good news that the Senate just passed this big, beautiful bill. I know this is, but it was absolutely necessary. It threatened a very big tax increase. I think, look, a lot of economist types will tell you that they don't really think that you should do the no tax on tips because they're worried people will game the system. But this is really just, look, most people who are tipped workers are being overtaxed. And we used to kind of have a polite understanding about this where the government turned a blind eye to it and said, they're probably not reporting all of it. But then the government started paying attention and started trying to nab people for underreporting tips.
The government became rapacious.
Yes.
And that's what needs to be dialed back. It needs to be not so rapacious and just be, it's our government, isn't it? Wasn't that the idea?
I think that's if you want a really big picture takeaway, that's what we need to establish again, is making sure that the government understands that it's our government. It's not the government's government, that we are the ones who get to set the rules. We're learning that, we're building it, but every step is a fight.
Last question. What are we going to do with that deficit?
So I think the only realistic way to deal with the deficit, you're not really going to cut down government spending a lot. You have to cut down on the growth of government spending and increase the growth of the economy. That's the only way to do it. You grow the size of the economy faster than you're growing the debt, then you can grow out of it. There's just not there's just not a political constituency. Yeah, get rates down. The Fed should be cutting. We have no inflation right now, but there's no constituency really for cutting the government. We just, we've tried a zillion times. I love the Rand Paul, Thomas Massey, my libertarian friends, but frankly, we don't have the votes in America, much less in the House or the Senate, to do it. So what we can do, slow growth in government, grow growth in the private sector, then we can get from under our debt eventually.
I have been watching carefully for enough decades now that I officially declared myself a time traveler. And one of the things I've had the chance to observe across my travel through the eons was in 2 or 3 episodes of significant inflation. And nothing worse than the 70s, where to get it down, we had to increase our Fed rates up to, people forget, 21%.
Yeah.
That I'm blanking on what's his name that did that under Reagan. Volcker came in and just blasted rates and crushed it. I have as a time traveler, a distinct experience of those inflationary eras as psychological. Inflation is a psychological phenomenon, and I don't see that psychology operating right now. That being the case, I think they have an opportunity to lower the rates. So that's humbly my time travel.
I agree with you. You can have my job, Dr. Drew. This would be, that would be great. Only if I can be a time traveler and go back.
Time travelers.
Yeah.
I have very strong ideas about certain medical practices because of the time travel, but I've seen some social and economic things too.
I'll tell you one medical thing I found out today, which is there are people who have started leeching people again. And I don't know if that's like has any legitimacy, but it is apparently particularly it's being used as an anti-aging thing. I joked because a friend of mine got sick and I said, well, if they can't figure it out, we'll go into the swamp and get some leeches. And somebody said, that's a real thing now.
Well, I'm glad that leeches are back. This is at least the second, maybe the third trend I've seen of leeches across my lifespan. The idea is not only do they suck out the evil humors, but they have some sort of enzyme that they inject in as well that's maybe have some anti-aging properties. The fact that these things die out is enough to tell you they're not that efficacious. You know what I'm saying? If it really was a fountain of youth, it would have been a stable, presence.
You'll be happy to know we did not go to the swamp and leech ourselves up once we heard about it. So we're trying to be a little bit more evidence-based.
But maggots are back, and maggots are in for wound clearance, wounded debridement. So that has stayed pretty consistent. All right, John, thank you so much for being here. My wife's reacting to it. We'll follow you on X. Is it just Carney at Carney, Carney?
Yeah, I joined really early, so I got to get my name right there.
Excellent. We'll look for you at Breitbart. Thank you, sir. John Carney, everybody. All right. We have coming up on our upcoming guests, I think.
A lot of good ones.
Casey's putting up my translation of rapacious, what it means. General Caldwell coming in tomorrow. Tomorrow's going to be very interesting. Tomorrow. Jono lost his brother to a violent crime, and he's set up an institute, and he's doing stuff about it. He's got a new book out. He's going to tell us about it. He's, of course, a Fox News contributor. Congressman Wesley Hunt. I love that guy. I can't wait to talk to him. I saw him on Bill Maher's TV show. I sent Bill a note, and I just thought he's just an inspiring dude. Allison Morrow in with that as well. Gary Sinise on Thursday with Siaka Massaquoi. Martha Burns, Brady Bates, Jenny McCarthy is back on the schedule. I know she will get here eventually. She's busy. Well, she'll get here. And Emily Barsh has got, as you see the guests she keeps coming up with that are outstanding. We can't necessarily, predict them just yet, but the week of we certainly can. So a lot of really interesting people coming your way. Yeah. Again, if you have suggestions, contact drdrew.com. Susan, what do you have to say?
We canceled our vacation, so we'll be back the next week as well.
Yes, we canceled. We'll be from New York next week.
Sorry, Emily.
And we're going to go, continue to drive poor Emily Barsh crazy. Caleb, anything on your front? You learn anything today?
I love Kari Lake, as always. I tell everyone Kari Lake said very nice things about my children the first time I met her, and so she has a fan. That's all you got to do.
She just mentioned Eloise too.
Kari's just so poised and such a great speaker. And then she understands the excesses of media, and so she can call it out. And now she's going to understand the excesses of some of these government officials too. It'll be very interesting to see what she does with all that. All right, everybody, we will see you tomorrow at 2:00 Pacific time. We'll see you right here. Ask Dr. Drew is produced by Caleb Nation and Susan Pinsky. As a reminder, the discussions here are not a substitute for medical care, diagnosis, or treatment. This show is intended for educational and informational purposes only. I am a licensed physician, but I am not a replacement for your personal doctor, and I am not practicing medicine here. Always remember that our understanding of medicine and science is constantly evolving. Though my opinion is based on the information that is available to me today, some of the contents of this show could be outdated in the future. Be sure to check with trusted resources in case any of the information has been updated since this was published. If you or someone you know is in immediate danger, don't call me, call 911. If you're feeling hopeless or suicidal, call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 800-273-8255. You can find more of my recommended organizations and helpful resources at drdrew.com/help.